Tommy Ridley pays a visit to his dad, Paddy, after a span of 14 years. The home lacks a feminine touch, and Paddy mentions his struggle in finding a companion. It seems challenging to find a lady who can withstand a hit these days. Paddy suggests coffee, but Tommy prefers a drink. Paddy, who's in recovery from alcoholism, is approaching the 1,000-day milestone. Tommy shifts the conversation to Paddy's past as an abusive spouse, causing Pops to struggle to contain his emotions. Meanwhile, Brendan Conlon, Tommy's brother, transforms into a princess for his daughter's birthday. Tess, his wife, expresses slight displeasure over exceeding the family budget on gifts. After the party, she heads to her job at a pub, leaving Brendan in charge of putting the girls to bed. As an incentive for his good behavior, she promises him some quality time if he waits for her tonight. At Colt's gym, there's a broadcast on MMA Live discussing billionaire Riley organizing an MMA Super Bowl named Sparta featuring a $5 million winner-takes-all tournament. Tommy enters the gym, where he used to train, and opts for a monthly subscription. Spotting a poster about the Sparta tournament, he notices Mad Dog boasting after defeating an opponent. Gym owner Colt, looking for another fighter, offers $200, and Tommy volunteers to face Mad Dog. Initially rejected, Tommy persists after Mad Dog's taunts, convincing Colt to let him fight with a signed waiver. The bout unfolds with Mad Dog on the defensive, and Tommy impressively takes him down with knee strikes and a knockout punch, proving Mad Dog not as fierce as claimed. Tommy claims the $200 from Colt, leaving the crowd astonished at his swift victory. Meanwhile, Brendan serves as a physics teacher, captivating his class with an engaging experiment to explain Newton's second law. His students admire him for his unique approach to teaching. After classes, Brendan meets with his financial advisor, who informs him that his mortgage payments are overdue due to him mortgaging his house for his daughter's heart transplant. The advisor, seeming somewhat nonchalant, mentions a 90-day grace period for payment. Recognizing Brendan's inability to settle the debt, the advisor suggests considering bankruptcy or facing foreclosure as options. Meanwhile, Paddy indulges in watching vintage footage of a young Tommy excelling in a wrestling match, having secured 7 gold medals. Paddy, known as Tommy's controversial coach, finds Colt at his doorstep seeking information about Tommy's recent victory against the top middleweight contender. Paddy deflects, advising Colt to inquire directly with Tommy and promptly closes the door. On the phone with his wife, Brendan discloses his decision to take a night shift as a bouncer at a club for additional income. Seeking extra cash, he participates in a parking lot MMA match against the mutilator Mike. The fight kicks off with Mike displaying agility and landing a solid punch. Brendan swiftly retaliates with a series of moves, successfully bringing his opponent to the ground. Landing repeated punches on Mike while he's down, Brendan secures the victory. Despite the crowd expressing disappointment as their favorite loses, organizers inform Brendan that he needs 2 more wins to claim the prize. The next morning, Brendan returns home, and Tess is taken aback by the visible signs of his rough encounter. Brendan confesses to fabricating his job as a bouncer and returning to his previous risky behaviors. Despite his promise to Jess about avoiding such actions, financial constraints push him to reconsider. Tess assures him they'll find a solution but requests that he give up fighting. Tommy shares details of the winner-takes-all tournament with his dad at a diner, expressing his desire for Paddy to train him. Paddy, citing the familiar devil over the unknown one, refers to Colt and himself, agreeing to train Tommy like in the past, but with the condition that Tommy gives up the pills. Paddy knows his son well. Back at school, rumors circulate about teacher Brendan's involvement in an MMA fight. As he enters the classroom with a black eye, students confirm the story. Despite beginning the class, Principal Joe calls Brendan into his office. In the meeting, Joe discloses that the superintendent is on the way and requests Brendan to explain. It turns out Brendan used to make a living by fighting in the UFC, a detail he seemingly overlooked when putting together his resume. The superintendent arrives, and Joe advises Brendan to assure that such incidents won't recur if he intends to retain his job. Back home, Brendan admits to Tess that he's been suspended from teaching until the next semester without pay. To keep their finances stable, he suggests returning to low-level fights. Though hesitant, Tess acknowledges the lack of better alternatives. Brendan heads to the gym, reconnecting with his old friend Frank. Apologizing for the distance, Frank is delighted to see Brendan. Sharing his struggle with the bank threatening to take away his house, Brendan subtly asks Frank to help him get back on his feet through training. Frank bluntly points out Brendan's history as a teacher, expressing doubts about his ability to face real fighters rather than random opponents in parking lots. Brendan insists he needs it, mentioning Tess is aware. Frank agrees but mentions his busy schedule training with Marco for the Sparta tournament, limiting his availability for Brendan's training. For Brendan, that's satisfactory. In the evening, Paddy pays Brendan a visit, who isn't thrilled to see him. Patty confesses that today marks his 1000th day of sobriety, and he simply wants to share a meal together. However, Brendan is unwilling, stating, "Just because it's a special day for you doesn't mean it's special for me." He starts to walk away but halts when Pops mentions Tommy's return. Tommy is at Pop's house, and they're training together. Brendan, left speechless, is upset that his brother hasn't informed him, and he resents that they're training as if nothing happened. Tommy, always Pop's favored son due to his superior fighting skills, never trained Brendan, and that lingering hurt intensifies. Patty asks for forgiveness and space in Brendan's heart. Though Brendan forgives him, trust remains an issue. Sternly, he shuts the door on Patty. In a rush, Tommy heads to the gym, where Colt informs him about securing a spot in the Sparta tournament. Later, he calls a woman to check on her and reminds her of his commitment. Having served in the army with her late husband, Tommy promised to look after her. Both Tommy and Brendan undergo training, and the breaking news covers the uniqueness of the Sparta tournament, emphasizing that only one out of the 16 fighters will emerge as the winner. Among them is Koba, a Russian fighter with an undefeated record. Tess catches wind of the Sparta tournament and the spotlight on Koba through a TV report. Brendan engages in sparring with Marco, Frank's top contender for Sparta, and Marco concedes defeat. As 4 weeks of training pass, a particular day takes a dark turn when Frank has to call an ambulance for Marco due to an accident. At the hospital, the news comes that Marco won't be able to participate in the fight. Brendan approaches Frank, offering to take Marco's place. Initially hesitant, Frank agrees to explore possibilities. The following day, Brendan receives a call from Frank, confirming his entry into Sparta. Tess is infuriated as Brendan made this decision independently. It's not about the money, she fears he might end up paralyzed or worse, killed. Brendan argues that without trying, the bank will seize their house in 3 weeks. He seeks Tess's support, but she refuses to witness him fight again. The Sparta Super Bowl is in full swing, featuring the toughest middleweight fighters gathered to determine the world's strongest. Brendan, unfortunately, isn't seen as a threat. In the lobby, both Tommy and Brendan spot each other, but Tommy opts to steer clear of his brother. Surprising news surfaces, revealing Tommy not just as an unexpected contender in the Sparta Cup but also a hero from the Iraq War. A soldier recognizes him from a video, expressing gratitude for saving his life. Unhappy about this recognition, Tommy decides to take a stroll. Outside, Brendan and Tommy cross paths, maintaining a tense distance. Brendan suggests grabbing coffee, but his brother declines, insisting he's fine where he is. With Tommy having left the family 14 years ago and Brendan staying for Tess, Brendan shares pictures of his family, only to be dismissed by Tommy. Tommy, still resentful, doesn't consider Brendan a brother after choosing Pops and a girl over him and their mother. Brendan, claiming forgiveness for Pops, Tommy, and Mom, triggers Tommy's anger. "You forgave us?" Tommy criticizes Brendan for not following through with the plan and accuses him of being insincere before making his exit. This is Sparta. The stadium brims with spectators eager to witness the grandest mixed martial arts event in history. Tommy takes the stage in the first round, becoming an instant sensation and even earning the title of a war hero, yet his identity remains a mystery. Tommy is like a riddle to Google, having avoided all interviews, sponsors, entrance music, and even evading having his picture taken. Tommy, breaking all the conventions, continues to capture the audience's hearts. They touch gloves, and the commentators assume Tommy's success is merely luck. Nonchalantly, Tommy approaches his opponent, delivering a knockout without waiting for the judge's verdict. Like a boss, he exits the cage, throwing another rule out the window. Next up is Brendan, with Frank providing encouragement. As Beethoven's music plays, Brendan enters the scene, receiving support from Pops urging him to win. Commentators skeptically claim Brendan, likening him to a goldfish in a shark tank. The fight unfolds differently from Tommy's, with Brendan facing a beating and being tossed around. Those cheering for the teacher anxiously watch as Brendan gets caught in a chokehold. With only 10 seconds remaining in the first round, Frank urges him not to tap out, and Brendan manages to endure until the bell rings. Jess anxiously awaits a text from her husband, reluctant to watch the game for the results. In the second round, punches are exchanged, and Brendan successfully applies an arm lock on his opponent. The commentators express surprise, while Pops quietly mumbles his belief that Brendan can do it. The opponent taps out, and Brendan secures his first win, leaving Joe unable to contain his excitement. Demonstrating great sportsmanship, Brendan's victory is considered by the commentators as a potential fluke. Jess, still on edge, finally receives a message that reads, "I won." She rejoices for him. With only 8 fighters remaining, now 7, Koba dominates his opponent. Unable to sit and wait any longer, Jess watches as Brendan narrowly survives the first round, eventually securing a win with an arm lock. Another victory for the physics teacher. Meanwhile, Tommy, much like Koba, swiftly defeats his opponent in just 10 seconds, securing a spot in the Final Four. Unable to sleep, Tommy is approached by Patty, who expresses pride in Tommy's actions for the soldier in Iraq. However, it turns out Tommy isn't proud. He deserted from a unit and simply happened to be in the right place at the right time. Patty earnestly attempts to connect with Tommy, seeking understanding, but all he receives is a dismissive response. "Spare the father routine, doesn't suit you, Pop." The common ground between Tommy and Brendan is their shared lack of appreciation for Patty. Tommy sends Pops away, remarking that he preferred him when he was a drunk, shattering Patty. Reverting to his old ways, Patty mutters nonsensical phrases from his audio recordings. In a moment of guilt, Tommy embraces Pops, offering comfort. As the fight approaches and only 4 fighters remain, the crowd unilaterally chants Tommy's name. Today, Tommy faces Mad Dog without Patty. Eager to avenge the humiliation from their sparring session, Mad Dog is confident that Tommy will be defeated. After an intimidating stare, met with no response from Tommy, the fight begins. Mad Dog is swiftly knocked down, and Tommy proceeds to dominate his face, with Colt urging to end the fight. Another rapid victory for Tommy. Brendan's opponent is the Russian Koba, the clear favorite with odds set at 1,000 to 1 for Brendan to win. Tess, Brendan's wife, is present to support him. They touch gloves, and the fight kicks off with Koba inflicting significant damage on Brendan, who retaliates with a punch that appears ineffective. Brendan takes punches that nearly topple him each time, with Koba dropping him and delivering a few more hits before the first round concludes. The second round kicks off similarly, leaving Jess unable to watch as Brendan is thrown around like a ragdoll. Concerned students and Joe observe the unfolding events. As the second round concludes, Frank informs Brendan that he'll throw in the towel if they aren't there to win. The third round becomes Brendan's final opportunity to knock out Koba, or else he'll lose his house. With determination in his eyes, the third round begins. Koba relentlessly pounds on Brendan and attempts a chokehold. In a surprising turn, Brendan reverses the situation by throwing Koba over him and putting him in a leg lock. Koba taps out, eliminating the tournament favorite. Brendan advances to the finals against Tommy. News spreads that Tommy, who changed his last name to his mother's, deserted as a soldier and will be taken into custody after today's Sparta final. In case of victory, he wishes to allocate the winnings to his fallen comrade's wife. It becomes evident to people that Tommy and Brendan are brothers fighting in the finals of the most significant MMA fight ever. Brendan enjoys widespread support, while Tommy faces the challenge alone. The fight kicks off, and true to form, Tommy showcases his precise and sharp movements, dominating Brendan. Brendan finds himself thrown to the ground and bombarded with punches. At the end of the first round, Tommy lands a punch on Brendan, triggering anger from the crowd due to perceived foul play. Frank steps in to calm Brendan, offering guidance on moving more effectively as they enter round 2. They engage in a fierce exchange of punches, clearly favoring Tommy, who keeps Brendan pinned to the ground. Starting round 3, Tommy once again gains an advantage, but this time, Brendan executes an incredible arm lock, causing Tommy to scream in pain. Despite the dislocated shoulder, Tommy refuses to give up, leading Brendan to dislocate it further to end the round. Before the next round, Brendan questions Tommy's sanity for fighting with a dislocated shoulder, but Tommy seems indifferent, almost like he's punishing himself. Refusing to continue the fight, Brendan receives the approval he sought from Patty after all these years. However, Patty doesn't go to Tommy's corner as a trainer. With no one on his side, Tommy is overwhelmed with emotions. As the last round begins, Brendan, faced with Tommy's resilience, decides to conclude the fight. He knocks Tommy down, puts him in a chokehold, asks for forgiveness, and repeatedly expresses his love. Finally, Tommy taps out. Joy fills the arena as Brendan emerges victorious in the $5 million tournament. He assists his brother, hugs him, and declares his enduring support. The fight succeeds in reuniting a torn family, bringing them back together. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.